Good morning. Several of you I've probably had in class, but for those of you who I haven't, I am Mrs. Rickey. I teach at the high school. I teach the foods classes, and I also help with FCA, or Fellowship of Christian Athletes, on Friday. But Mr. What do you guys call him? I call him Rick. Rick Burney, Mr. Rick. That kind of sounds weird. But he asked me to just kind of record a little of my testimony for you. Just in this tough time that we're going through. And so I've been thinking about it and like, well, what should I write down? There's been a lot in my life. And then I thought, you guys, you don't want another scripted anything at this point in time. I'm sure you're watching lots of scripted classes and there's scripted speeches on TV, and you just want the raw and real. So here's the raw and real of mine, which means it's not rehearsed. So if I stumble over my words, forgive me. But I've just been thinking a lot about like where you guys would be at as teenagers in this time. And I wasn't much older than you when I had probably one of for sure the rockiest times of my life. I had just graduated college. Everything was like ironed out, going perfect, graduated, had my first house, renovated it, did pretty well in school, had a job lined up, I got married like 2 weeks after graduation. I was one of my first friends to get married, and I just was like where I had dreamed I would be. Things were just going great. And it took about 4 months and my entire life fell apart. Just everything. I was getting divorced. I didn't have a home to live in. I really didn't have any friends anymore because all of the friends that I had were shared between us as a couple, and that we had had since high school. And I really just found myself at this place like more alone than I had ever been in my life. And that while I had been to church my whole life, and I knew the Lord and I was a professed believer, I had never had my faith tested in a way that I did then. It had to be something that wasn't just in a book or something that I was singing about in church on Sunday, but something that I would own, that I could apply to my life, that I could have it be my firm foundation that I was literally standing on for survival. And I had a couple people that just really poured into my life right then. And one of them was actually someone I work with, and she became a great friend. But I had always said that the verse Joshua 1:9 was my life verse. And that talks about, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I'm an anxious person when there's change. And so not only had that always helped me for that, but at this point in time where I literally had nowhere to go, it meant so much to me. And so this friend, I came to school one day and she had put on my desk this dumbbell, and it's so old now. It's almost 20 years old, but written on it is Joshua 1:9. And this dumbbell went everywhere with me. And it's in my car. I just took it out to show you guys, but I take it everywhere with me. But it just reminds me of like the strength that the Lord is when we are feeling so weak. And I know right now there's so many things that you guys, they're scary in the world, just with all that's going on with this virus. They're scary in your homes if you have parents that aren't working. There's the unknown of school being different than anything that you've ever felt or dealt with before. Missing friends, missing boyfriends, girlfriends. For some of you, there's just this potential loss of prom and graduation and your last summer at home hanging out the way you had planned. And I get that. I so get that from, like I said, I had everything just like good. I'm good. I had everything good, and everything in my life changed. I felt like I had nothing. And so I just want you to remember that like the Lord's strength is enough for those scariest times. And one of the things I've been thinking about is so often we hear about how like there's these just mountains in our way that we can't overcome. And right now there just feels like there's so many mountains. And I don't know if you've ever climbed a mountain, but I did one time at YFC camp, and it was it was not the hardest and worst thing I've ever done. It was literally the coolest thing I have ever done. And you always hear about like that on top of the mountaintop is where you feel the greatest triumph. And mine was not. When we climbed that mountain, It was really hard. There was a lot of kids doing it. It was a tough day. We went in and out of rain and snow and cold and hot. We were not all physically equipped for that. The air was tough. And I remember at one point, one of the leaders next to me started quoting books, like the entire books of the Bible. Now, I'm not saying like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, like saying them. He was quoting word for word books of the Bible he had memorized. That inspired me so much. And at one point I felt really weary and tired, and like the altitude was getting to me. And this kid behind me was on crutches. He was on crutches, and people were just alongside him, encouraging him. And so it was not the top of the mountain for me. Yeah, it felt great to be there and just relax, and the scenery was beautiful. But it was that journey up that has stood out in my mind so many points in my life. So I just want you to remember that like the Lord is doing great things in this time. I know we don't see it. I 100% believe it is for a purpose. And I 100% believe that he is there with us. I can look back now 20 years later, and not saying that that was the one rocky spot in my life. I've had lots of rocky spots. But that was the point in my journey where I learned to love God is just everything to me, and stand on him and know that no matter what changes happen in my life, he truly does not change. And you truly can come to him face down, completely just broken, and he does not leave you there. He picks you up. He comforts you. I had times that I would just pray, Lord, rock me in your rock me in your lap like I'm your child. And I felt that peace. And so I just want you to be encouraged by that. And then one last thing I just want to leave you with. I just want you to remember that the Lord hears us no matter what our prayers are. And I just read this verse this week, and it meant a lot to me. It was just a time I was like really overwhelmed with a lot going on this week. And it says, it's in Psalms, "Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer." That's Psalm 6, 8, and 9. And so please just remember that like in this time that we feel so separated, there's no separation from God, and he hears every word. He hears every plea. So that's kind of some of my testimony. It's kind of some of an encouragement. Just know that there are so many people lifting you up in prayer, and there's so many people that are going to pour out into your life. And if you need something that makes you feel like you're helping, find who you can pour into. This person that gave me this dumbbell, it was so simple, but it meant so much to me for so long. And still, 20 years later, it's a visual reminder of me of the Lord's strength in my hardships. So we love you guys all. We're praying for all of you, and I hope that you are doing well.